Hey guys, welcome back to our Gigabyte Motherboard and Bricks YouTube channel. My name is Sam Reynolds, and beside me is HiCookie. HiCookie is a resident overclocker. In front of us is the SOC Force LN2 board, and today we'll talk about this board and some of the great features that help overclockers reach their best. So Cookie, we have gaming series of boards, ultra durable series of boards. We also have overclocking boards. So what are some of the key technology features that will really push overclockers to ensure they can overclock their best?
So first of all, the Z170X-SOC Force LN2 board. This one is dedicated for the overclockers. They want to take the best scores,
right,
and put on the LN2 overclocking.
Yeah.
And so we input a lot of the overclocking features.
Okay.
Just dedicated for the LN2 board.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are some common features to all of our boards.
Yes.
We have them here. So speaking of features, looking at this board, I can see some differences. First of all, the VRMs are right here, and they're fairly close to the CPU socket, and they're all lined up like that vertically. So why is that, and how does it help overclockers?
Okay, we use the lineup, the A-phase digital.
Yeah.
Connect to the CPU power, and we design the VRM to very close to the CPU,
okay,
so they can deliver the better charge and the power quality to the CPU.
Okay, to make sure that
yes,
these guys have the best quality power, so they can really push their CPUs to as high as they can go.
Yeah, and also we have additional 4 pins.
Okay.
To help the input of the CPU power to the VRM.
Right.
So by that you can totally ignore the OCP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So moving on here, we have, of course, our CPU sockets, and we have these 4 mounting brackets next to the socket. So these look a bit different from your normal mounting brackets, and they're for LN2, is that right?
Yeah. So we start the LN2 board back to the Z170X-SOC Force LN2 motherboard.
That was back in 2011.
Yeah. So no, last year.
Last year.
Okay. So we designed the LN2 motherboard. We just want to take the best memory overclocking as possible.
Right.
So we designed the memory slice close to the CPU as short as possible.
Okay.
So on the Z97, we remove the CPU mounting hole.
Right.
Because we want to keep the best charge and the distance between the CPU and the memory.
Right.
So on the Z170, so we new design to put the mounting hole back to the CPU.
Okay.
Because the users cannot just only can get the highest memory frequency.
That's
they
right.
also can based on the memory quality, overclocking ability, and to push the CPU. So they can go the best results, whatever the 3D mark, the CPU 2D benchmark, also the memory. So they don't need to feel painful to redesign the CPU brackets.
Right.
So the mounting hole is based on the AMD mounting.
Okay.
So you can just use the AMD mounting hole
right,
or the brackets to mount the CPU.
So that way you can put your LN2 pot right above the motherboard and have that securely placed on the board?
Yeah, and also can get the water cooling system to build on the LN2 motherboard.
Okay, speaking of water cooling in LN2, we have above here, we have 2 power sockets. So one, of course, is for your system fan, but another one is for liquid cooling.
Yeah, the other one is we call the CPU OPT.
OPT, okay.
So we want to keep this only for the water cooling system.
Right.
They can keep the water pump 100% running all the time.
Exactly, because without that power going through the pump, you'd have the water just being stagnant. It wouldn't really work for cooling.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look now at these 2 RAM slots. Now these RAM slots are actually a lot closer to the CPU socket than most motherboards.
Yes, that's LN2 design. It's very close to the CPU as possible.
Right.
So and also we only design the 2 slots of the memory slots because we don't want to do the T topology or the daisy chain. We don't want to split the memory signal.
Okay.
So we only designed 2 slots
Yeah.
to get the best memory overclocking ability.
So let's talk now about some of the buttons on this board that make overclocking easy. So first up we have the OC touch buttons. We have turbo, OC ignition, tag, gear, and power. So Cookie, how do these help overclockers?
So this one is the OC touch. It's GIGABYTE design. Some have the special patents on that.
Okay.
So we're talking about the OC touch. It's not just for the overclocker can easy to get the overclock the results, right?
Right.
We want to make the overclocker can easy to do the settings and get the good results.
Right.
So we start with the turbo button.
Mm-hmm.
It's one key do the overclocking. So you just press the turbo.
Okay.
The system will preload the overclocking configuration for your CPU and the system.
So for new users, they can touch this and
Yeah.
they can experience overclocking
Yeah.
just with a simple touch of a button.
Yes. So go on with the OC ignition.
Okay.
It's a GIGABYTE patent technology.
Okay.
So this OC ignition it can help the overclock do the like a liquid nitrogen overclocking. They can remove the CPU's codec or the code boot.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other feature is it also can help the water cooling system.
Yeah.
Like you have a CPU OPT here, right?
Right.
It's keep the pump at 100% running.
Okay.
So once you press the OC ignition,
Yeah.
and without turn on the system,
Right.
you can keep the water cooling system start running.
Right. Keep it flowing so that way you can test out your cooler
Yeah.
to make sure it works properly without having to boot your entire system up.
Yes, yes. So next we have the OC tag.
Right.
We also have OC tag button here.
Okay.
So in the BIOS we can allow the users to set some the OC profile, right?
Right.
So this OC tag is users can identify which one the OC profiles to be the physical buttons.
Okay.
So after you clean the CMOS,
Yeah.
you press the OC tag.
Okay.
They will reload your profile.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have also another button called gear.
Yeah. So gear button is the big clock stepping between 1 megahertz and 0.1.
Right.
So they will benefit the overclockers to fine tune the big clock or the CPU frequency.
Right.
So go on, we have the bit clock up and down.
Okay.
And the CPU ratio up and down.
Right.
So they also support the real-time overclocking.
Okay.
Whatever in the DOS or the OS.
Right. Right.
So they can can change the CPU ratio and the bit clock in real time.
In real time. Okay. So let's move on to these buttons down here. These three guys here. We have MemSafe. We have Settings Lock, and finally we have CWBAT.
Okay, so first one we have a memory safe.
Yes.
The main safe is GIGABYTE dedicated for the users. They have sometimes the memory troubleshootings.
Okay.
If the memory cannot boot in, they can try press the main safe.
Right.
So the system will preload the safety configuration for your memory.
Right.
Yeah. So it helps the users to do the troubleshooting with the memories.
Okay.
And the second one is the settings lock. So this settings lock is like overclock. Sometimes they meet the overclocking fail. So they need to clean the CMOS.
Okay.
Yeah. And after the clean CMOS, all the settings is gone, right?
Right.
So you press the settings lock. After the clean CMOS,
Yeah.
the system will also preload the settings you just set before.
Okay.
So it's not totally remove your settings. Okay. So the next we have the Seabed Switch.
Yes.
So this Seabed Switch is sometimes you cannot just clean the CMOS if the system still keep some settings because some settings is not just in the BIOS partition. It's sometimes it's related to the PCHME.
Okay.
Yeah. So clean battery button is a Seabed button is it can totally remove all the settings.
Okay.
And why we have buttons? you actually can just remove the battery, right?
Of course,
Yeah, but sometimes you put a graphic card here or maybe some SSD, PCI SSD.
Right.
And then you need to remove the SSD or graphics, then you can remove the battery.
So that way if you have a big setup, so lots of graphics cards, a big massive cooler,
yeah.
and you have to do the removal of battery, instead you can just hit the button and same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's move on up here to the Debug LED.
Yes.
So if you have a problem with your motherboard during boot, this guy up here will show you a certain code, and you can find out what that code means to help you troubleshoot your problem.
Yeah, so this debug LED is very friendly for the overclockers or even the system builder. They can easily to check which code to stop a system.
Right.
They can check our manual and they will mention about that.
Okay.
For example, like you have a 55 code here.
Yeah.
And then you go to check the manual, they will say the memory fail.
Memory fail.
So
okay.
the users can know, oh, it's overclocking the memory fail.
Right.
Yeah. So it's easier to do the troubleshooting with the LED debugging.
Okay, so these switches down here, these will toggle the PCIe slots. So you can, for example, turn a certain slot on or off to help you troubleshoot or to do what else.
Yeah, so this PCIe switcher it's very easy or friendly for the overclockers, also the system builder.
Yeah.
Like for the extreme overclocking, they put the graphic card on the GPU.
Yes.
So sometimes they mean that maybe the graphics is fail, or
Right.
maybe they have a water check in the slots,
Okay.
and they cause some graphics not booting, right?
Yeah.
So they can try to disable and without remove the graphics.
Okay.
Yeah, and also if you are the system builder, you have to build the water cooling for each graphics.
Right.
So you can easily to troubleshooting just by switch off and on to check out which graphic is faulty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. See what works, what doesn't work. Okay. So right over here we have the trigger switch.
Yeah. So trigger switch it's very friendly. Also the GIGABYTE Exclusive design.
Okay.
So they allow the overclocker to keep all the settings. Like for example, I have a 7 gig running, right?
Right.
But imagine that if you want to run some benchmark with 7 gig,
Yeah.
maybe the benchmark just need a 1 or 2 second stability, right?
Okay.
So you can use the trigger switch to force the CPU go down to by 8.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So imagine that if you running like a 100 meter,
right.
you don't need to run all the time from the
Of
beginning,
course not,
right?
no.
So even you finish that, you don't need to keep that, right?
Right.
So this function is like a simple as that.
Okay.
So they will allow you force the CPU to stand by at by 8 frequency.
Right. So it's like the sprint mode, for example.
Yeah.
To give it extra power.
Yeah. So in past, if you don't have a trigger switch, you need to through the software
Right.
to change the settings and then change back.
Okay.
So these physical buttons, you don't need to do that. Yeah.
Right. A lot easier.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about now the BIOS.
Yeah.
So on this board, you've got a dual BIOS system, but one of the features allows you to disable one of the BIOSes.
Yeah. So I go on with the dual BIOS, the OC dual BIOS design.
Yeah.
We have the dual BIOS is from the GIGABYTE patent dual BIOS, right?
Okay.
And the overclocking motherboard we improve that. It's OC dual BIOS.
Right.
So we have the dual BIOS switch. So you can switch to main BIOS or the second BIOS.
Okay.
So depend on which BIOS you want to use, right?
Right.
So you can set the maybe F1 on the main BIOS, F2 on the second BIOS.
Okay.
So you can easily to switch by those two BIOS version.
Right.
And then we also have the single BIOS switch.
Okay.
So sometimes you can just use the single BIOS mode because GIGABYTE's dual BIOS is very complicated and sometimes it's more useful for the users, but for the overclockers sometimes they don't want to wait.
Right.
They don't want to wait the second BIOS to be recovery. Yeah.
BIOS. Okay.
Yeah. So because for most of time if you do the wrong settings, cause the system not booting.
Right, crash.
Yeah, and it's crash only. It's not a really physical BIOS crash.
Right.
So you just wanted to clean CMOS and then do again, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if we keep the single is disabled, so running dual BIOS, the dual BIOS will automatically recovery.
Okay.
So by meantime, we don't want to do the recovery. We just use the single BIOS mode.
Right. Yeah.
So they will help a user to choose. I want to use single BIOS or the dual BIOS.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the OC dual BIOS, we also have the LED detector.
Okay.
So they have LED on the dual BIOS. You can see which BIOS is using now.
Okay, great. And so right here we have this power detector cable.
Yeah.
So what does this do for overclockers?
Yeah. So around the OC touch area, we also have the voltage measurements.
Okay.
And the low power detecting cables is allow the user to use the multimeter to measure the voltage.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay guys, let's move on to the OC Connect. If you look at the boards, they have these two USB slots down here. That's OC Connect. So Cookie, how does OC Connect help overclockers?
So GIGABYTE's OC connectors was based on the user's experience. So imagine the users or overclockers, they do the open case testing or the overclockings. They just can plug the USB thumb drive from here. They don't need to go through the back I/O. So it also features, if you put in a chassis, it can be the extension for the front USB port.
Right, okay. So it's a lot easier to do that versus having to go back to the back of the motherboard.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's move on here to the PCIe slots. And you'll see that they have this metal shield on them. So that way your expensive PCIe cards won't get damaged over time or during transit.
Yes.
Okay, great. So if you look over here, it's the audio noise guard. This is a common feature on our other boards. It makes sure that you have the best audio experience possible without interference. Alright, so you'll notice that this board has three M.2 ports. M.2 is for next-gen SSDs. Alright, let's look now at the Turbo B clock. So what's that, Cookie? And
so the GIGABYTE's the Turbo B clock chip is GIGABYTE's bring-on for all the Z170X motherboards, including the gaming and ultra durables.
So it's common to those boards too?
Yeah, so the Turbo B clock chip is help the users that do the overclocking, they can get a better performance and experience.
Yeah.
Instead of the users to use the internal CPU clock gen.
Right.
So you also can combine with the OC touch here.
Okay.
The big clock you can run it by 1 or 0.1 megahertz with the steppings. So the Turbo B clock can bring the users to another levels when they do the overclocking.
That's right. Okay, let's look now at the OC brace. So what's the OC brace, Cookie?
So OC brace is a GIGABYTE bring the dedicated with the patterns OC brace to the overclocks. So imagine that so many times the extreme overclockers they have a heavy part on the GPU.
Yeah.
So on the PCI Express slot, they probably gonna damage the slot, right?
Right.
Okay, so they have an OC brace that can protect the GPU and to be stable and then not damage the gold finger, also the PCI Express slot.
Right. Okay, so let's move on now to Q Flash Plus. You'll notice here on the USB ports that we have mostly blue ports, but we have this guy here that's white, and that is your Q Flash Plus port.
Yeah, so Q Flash Plus is a GIGABYTE's bring this technology for the users.
Yeah.
They don't need to turn on the computer, they can just updating the BIOS through the USB drive.
Okay.
Yes, so it's very useful. So for the users, they want to upgrade their CPU, and probably they don't need the old CPU to put on the system.
Right.
They can just install the USB drive with the BIOS inside. They can just do the overclocking and the updating
Right.
through the Q-Flash Plus.
Okay, so one more feature to look at. We have this button right here. This is the mobile overclocking button.
Yeah, so for the overclocking motherboards, you
Yeah.
have features the OC Touch, right? So
Yeah.
you can do the real-time overclockings.
Right.
And we also have the software team to come out the mobile apps.
Right.
So you can install the apps on your cell phone.
Okay,
and
so that's for both Android and iOS?
yeah, so through the USB port, you can
Yeah.
do the real-time overclocking from your iPad
Right.
or even the iPhone.
That's really convenient.
Yes.
Okay, great. So that was, guys, a hands-on look at some of the overclocking features on the SOC Force LN2 board. Alright guys, that was a hands-on look at the SOC Force LN2 motherboard. This board has great features for overclocking, and it's great for either beginners or extreme overclockers. Now, some of these unique features can be found on our other boards. They include the Turbo B clock. This is on the gaming series of boards as well as the Ultra Durable series of boards too. That means that anyone with any of our boards can overclock. Alright, Cookie,
Yeah.
we have some competition going on right now.
Yeah.
So if you check on Hardware Bots, you can find the Winter OC competition. It's for anyone with a Gigabyte board. You can win great cash prizes. So check it out, and if you're a newbie, that's okay, because it's open to all skill levels. Alright, if you like what you saw, go on to Facebook and give our page a like. It's Gigabyte Motherboards, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. My name is Sam Reynolds, and beside me is Cookie, and thanks for watching.